So there's a new book out called Defender in Chief, Donald Trump's Battles for Presidential Power. Okay? Just came out yesterday. The author of the book is John Yoo. You may remember him. He is currently a law professor at the University of California, Berkeley, the most radical college campus in the country. And he previously served as Deputy Assistant U.S. Attorney General in the Office of Legal Counsel under George W. Bush. First of all, when you saw Barr yesterday, I mean, you know the Justice Department as well as anybody, Professor. What was your reaction to the way he was treated by the Democrats on the Judiciary Committee?
I thought it was disgraceful. In fact, it reminded me, sadly, of these fake baseball games we're watching where they put cutouts of the fans up in the stands, because the way Barr was treated, they could have just had a cutout of the Attorney General there. They didn't really ask him any questions that they wanted to hear answers to. They were using him as a prop for campaign commercials and set speeches. I thought it was terrible, and I thought Barr did a good job. I thought America saw someone who was patient, well-prepared, and I thought gave good answers when he was allowed to speak at all.
You weren't surprised at this exposition, I'm sure. Barr himself knew that he was going to get in there, and Nadler and the others were going to try to embarrass him. And I don't know if that's really what the House of Representatives should be doing.
Well, I used to be a Senate staffer myself, and I was disappointed. I was surprised. I hadn't seen a hearing that was that extreme before. Usually, especially when it's a cabinet officer, when it's the Attorney General of the United States, you may ask tough questions. You might give a little bit of histrionics, but you still give the Attorney General the chance to answer the questions. That's the whole point of the hearing, is not to give a forum for people just to give campaign speeches. It's actually there so that you can learn some information about what's going on in Portland or at the Justice Department.
Sure. And I mean, there's a lot of things the Justice Department is involved with right now, and information is what the American people need. A lot of people around Donald Trump have turned on him. And a lot of Republicans, like Mitt Romney and John Kasich, despise the president. But you have remained loyal to him, whereas your former boss, all right, President Bush the Younger, he didn't have any use for Donald Trump. Why have you remained a supporter of Mr. Trump?
Actually, I wouldn't even say I've remained loyal. I started out 4 years ago a little bit wary of Donald Trump because he's a populist, and populists often want to escape the restrictions on their powers because they want to achieve their popular goals. But what I found over the last 3 or 4 years is I've come more and more steadily closer to the president's views, because I found, and it's very much what you said about Portland, very much what you said about these hearings, it's his critics, his opponents, who want to overthrow the Constitution, overthrow our political traditions and the way we've run the country for the last 2 centuries. And I found that even though he's a populist, Trump became an unexpected defender of the Constitution. He's the one who's saying, of course, we can send federal law enforcement into our cities to protect federal property, federal personnel. After all, that's what Fort Sumter and the Civil War outbreak were about. That's what President Lincoln had said at the start of the Civil War.
Right. Now, you are a minority, Mr. Yoo, and you are extremely successful. All right? What do you think when you hear the Black Lives Matter movement, whatever that may be, all right, say this is a racist country, that African Americans are persecuted by authorities? What do you think when you hear that?
I don't think America is a systematically racist country. I think it's a country that's worked harder than any other one I can think of to live up to the promise of the Declaration of Independence. It's a country where 600,000 Americans died in the Civil War to redeem the promise of the Declaration of Independence and to end slavery. It's a country where for decade after decade it tries to get better. It tries to become perfect. It knows it never can. Nothing human ever can become perfect, but we have constantly tried to do so. And President Trump, I think, unfortunately, is attacked unfairly on this score. I think he has actually produced an economy, as you started out saying, that have produced historic levels of employment amongst blacks and amongst the poor and amongst Hispanics, and he gets no credit for that. So I think I reject this idea that the nation is systematically racist and structured in a way to discriminate against minorities.
Now, you are in the belly of the beast in Berkeley, California. You teach law at the University of California. You are certainly in a minority on your faculty. Do you have a problem out there on that campus? Do you believe that your freedoms, speech, expression, are being violated out there?
I have to say, I actually like the company of liberals. Maybe it's not good for me. Maybe I'm a country. Maybe I like you, Bill. I like to argue with people. I bet you like being around liberals too. But I do worry at what I see happening on our campuses. I do see the emergence of this kind of intellectual orthodoxy, which is steadily canceling speakers, canceling classes, trying to drive out professors who have conservative views or just unorthodox views. That's not the way universities work. They only work if all ideas can get out there, fight against each other, and the best ideas win. So that's what's made American colleges and universities the best ones in the world. But I worry if we keep it this in the same direction we've been going, we're going to fall behind our competitors in Asia and Europe.
Well, we're also going to fall behind in our freedom capacities because now all of our freedoms are in danger with the cancel culture. Final question for you. And I'm sure you've thought about this because you're a man of thought. By the way, Mr. Yoo's book, Defender in Chief, is a very, very relevant study of what the Constitution really says. So if you want to understand what our country's really about, then this book is a must, Defender in Chief. Do you know, Professor, what is driving this incredible hatred toward our country on the part of the Black Lives Matter movement and the anarchists that we're seeing in the cities? What's driving that?
Unfortunately, I think you could say this is the college campus is now coming to the rest of the country. These are ideas that have been fomented in our universities for the last 20, 30, 40 years, but people I don't think took them seriously because they never thought they would be put into practice. And I think what's behind this is power. It's the idea that certain classes of people should just make any arguments necessary to try to seize power. That doesn't mean anyone's, as you said, no one's approving of police brutality. No one wants George Floyd's of the world killed. And there are systems and methods for investigating and punishing those responsible. But I think broader arguments to say that the police are all inherently racist, that the government is inherently racist, I don't think that's true. So what's really behind it is just an effort by people who are out of power to try to take over. And I think it's really, as you point, I think a lot of the inspiration from it comes from failed Marxist ideas, which have failed every time they've been put into place. You look at countries where Marxism took over, tens of millions of people have been killed by their own governments. That's the last thing I think we want in the United States.
All right, Professor, we really appreciate you taking the time. Good luck with the book. Again, it is Defender in Chief by John Yoo. We'll talk soon. And on the subject of the police, here's a little payback. So 100 police agencies have told the Democratic National Committee they're not going to help out at the DNC convention. 100. Why do you think that is?
Bill O'Reilly is back on TV and only on The First. No Spin News, every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on The First.